Guys, welcome back to Quick Notes with Chris. Today we're going to be talking about the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Covey. It is a very self-explanatory book. There's going to be a list of 7 different things that highly effective people utilize that you can either start applying or understanding and move towards utilizing in your life in order to better whatever position you are, whether it's your relationships, your financial position, or general whatever your purpose is or hobby that you're looking towards achieving in life. I really like it because it has a lot of real-world examples and it attaches it, and it's very sort of dot point. So you have a very easy way to not misunderstand any types of the teachings that they want to talk about. So the first thing that they notice that 7 habits that all highly effective people have in common is they're proactive. Now, proactive basically means you're utilizing your time in a certain way that's orientating you to a direction of your goal. So I always talk about how you basically need to label a bunch of your activities, a bunch of the ways that you spend your time with different categories. The easiest ones that I utilize are, is the task that you're doing now urgent or important? Urgent versus important. That's very for some people that's very difficult to understand, because how can something that be more important, right, be overtaken by something that's more urgent? Because time is a deadline and you need to understand that you need to get things on time. So understand if what your task, what you're doing now, is it urgent, is important. Something like going to the gym, that's not urgent. If you're not training for something, if you're not training for a certain thing that's coming up, that's not urgent, but it is important for your overall health. That just gives you a bit of a understanding to understand the difference. Now, the next thing is, if it's not urgent or important, is it productive? Right? Now, this is where you have to be honest with yourself. So anything that's like, luxury time, anything that's like downtime and stuff like that, that is technically speaking not productive. That doesn't mean that you can't utilize that. That doesn't mean that you can't have it. But if you can monitor it, then, it's best that you do have an understanding of where your limitations are to make sure that it does copulate and does sort of be proactive. That's the whole idea. So proactive people, they are proactive towards their goal. They're constantly making actions that are getting them closest to the goal, their ideology, things that they want to accomplish. That's one of the habits of the highly effective people. The next thing is that they always begin with the end in mind. Now, how many people have heard the thing, start with the end in mind, start with the end in mind, start with the end in mind? I know I did, but I didn't really understand the breakdown of what that means. Basically, effective people, whenever they set out to do something, whenever they're looking towards creating a task, whenever they're looking towards starting something up, they focus on the result versus the process. They don't get caught up. Once they decide they're going to do something, they don't get caught in the process of the action that they want. For example, if their goal is to make, let's say, $1 million, right? They don't care too much about what they have to do in order to get there, as long as it's legal, ethical, it's in line with their personal beliefs and morals. They don't care too much about the process. The highly effective people, they understand the goal, what their result is, and they just sort of fill it with the process line. They don't have too much of an emotional attachment to the work that has to do. For example, let's say your goal is to become the number one, you're Usain Bolt, and your goal is to become the number one in 100-meter sprints. You have to understand that there's going to be so much dieting, so much workout, and everything in order to basically attain that goal. Now, you don't have any feeling. You don't need to personally feel motivated in order to wake up in the mornings. You don't need to personally feel motivated in order to go out to the tracks. Sure, some days you will, most days you won't, but that won't affect you because you're always focusing on the result. You're focusing on the end in mind, and that's what it means. Don't get caught up in the process. These effective people, the habits of them, they don't actually care what they have to do in order to get their result. All they care about is what they're doing, actively being proactive towards getting to their result. And if you can master their mindset, don't get me wrong, it's not easy. Not a lot of people have mastered it, but if you can sort of get in that mindset and understand about it, you don't need to care about the process, you care about the result, then obviously it's just a matter of time before you achieve it, right? It's just a matter of going through the motions, understanding the process, and not being too, emotionally involved with it. The next thing that it talks about, you'll understand all of these sort of do link, but the next one is first things first. Going back to that analogy that I use, where is it important or is it urgent, right, versus is it unproductive? The highly effective people have the habit of always prioritizing first things first. Now, this one makes sense. This one goes back to if you were in basically primary school again. First things first, second things if you have time. Now, this is where discipline, habit has to sort of has to come in. You have to be honest with yourself and understand, all right, is what you're doing right now, is it the first thing that needs to be first? If you're, procrastinating, if you're doing something like that, they basically set up their own systems that take away any form of procrastination and make sure that they always get the first thing. In fact, there's a phenomenon that I use called eating that frog, where the hardest thing that they do first, straight thing in the morning, to make sure that they build a level of momentum, to get the worst thing out of the day done, Therefore, they can continually move on to it and sort of have mini wins towards it, making sure they have a proactive day. First things first, second things if you have time. Keyword time. First things first, second things if you have time. Everything that is not going to be proactive towards your goal gets put in a back seat until that thing is done, right? The only time that they basically utilize their time in other times is when the first thing that they need to get done is either done or they can't do it anymore because of circumstances. So far we have be proactive, actively utilize. Proactive means to basically actively take action that's going to get you closer to your goal. The next one is begin with the end in mind. Constantly have the process in the back of your mind, result in the back of your mind while you're doing the process. First things first. The fourth thing is think win-win. A lot of people, whenever it comes to success, they think that they have to basically blow out someone else's fire in order to make theirs brighter. That's not the case. Understand that in a lot of successful deals, whenever there's a successful people, it doesn't involve basically making someone less than where they're at. Majority of the time, that would be illegal. So there's always win-wins. Understand that, you developing $1 million doesn't mean that you have to basically make someone else poor, right? It is a win-win situation for a lot of these types of things, right? Effective people understand this. And if you do it right, true success is when you don't actually have to trample over anyone else, right? Understand that there is a level of competition, but it doesn't mean that you absolutely need to demolish them, right? There are win-win situations. In fact, there are more win-win situations than ever someone having to lose. And the next one is they seek first to understand, then to be understood. How many people do you know when you've had a conversation where they're literally just listening to respond versus listening to understand? A highly effective person will always listen to what you're having to say first before just having their automated response that they want to get out, right? These types of people are effective communicators. They understand that to seek to be understood, they first need to understand it. And it's just a genuine great habit. You'll notice that a lot of highly effective, highly successful people, they have this sort of mindset that you can always learn from someone else. They never stop learning. They never feel like they've arrived, right? If you feel as if you've arrived, then that's the wrong thinking in itself. The only person that has arrived is actually no one. You never do. So you have to keep striving, understand that there's always something to be learned in every single situation. Most importantly, always seek to understand before you seek to be understood. The next one is synergy. Now this one was a little bit of a different concept, but basically my understanding is it's by working with a team, understanding that together everyone achieves more, and understanding that the small parts is never equal to the whole. Whenever you work as a team, you're always going to get a larger result. 1 + 1 in this case equals 3 if you utilize the results and parts correctly. It's a very interesting concept. They call it basically synergizing or synergy. I related it to teamwork. So understanding that no matter what, no matter how successful you become, eventually you comes to a point where you run out of time, you need to delegate tasks, and you need to start working as a team. And a good team synergizes in order to basically get a better result together than individual. Together, everybody achieves more. Team. The next one is sharpening the saw. So how many people have heard the quote that if you gave me 12 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend the first 6 hours sharpening my axe? Well, this is what sharpening the saw means. It basically talks about how prior preparation prevents poor performance, and understanding that evaluation needs to happen and whenever you can't do the action. Now, it's sort of a conflicting, success principle whenever it comes to failing forward and the 5 Ps or sharpening the saw. But in reality, the way that it should work is if you can't do the action, if you can't be actively out there performing, then you should be evaluating and practicing. For example, Usain Bolt, he can only run so many 100 meters per year. I already used it in a previous example. It makes sense for him to do everything that he possibly can beforehand, outside of running on the track, in order to make sure that he's getting his biomechanics correct, his muscles basically in the right form, making sure that his muscle mass is at the correct T. So when he does come to performance, his axe is sharpened. He can do it in a more effective manner, and that's exactly why it's number one. If you look at any athlete in any sport, he is spending more time in the gym, more time practicing than he ever will be on the field playing. No matter what the sport, whether it's tennis, whether it's basketball, whether it's boxing, they're always going to be spending more time practicing than performing. And that's also a sort of key to success that you can emulate in anything. Whether if you're working in a company, basically understand your market, understand your trends, understand that you're people with. If you're leading a team, basically evaluate your own performance, understand that you can always become a better leader. If you do all 7 of these things, then basically you become an effective person, and it's only a matter of time before you experience success. So, to summarize, the top 7 things that highly effective people have, the habits of them are, number 1, be proactive. They're constantly doing actions to get them closer to their goal. They begin with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. They always focus on the result that they're looking to attain versus the process that comes with it. Third is first things first. First things first, second things that you have time. Have a priority, or understanding what it is that you need to do for that day or what you need to do right now. think win-win. They understand that in order for them to become successful, that doesn't mean that they need to screw over someone else, right? It is a team situation where both parties can profit. Seek first to understand before being understood. You can always learn from someone else, right? Never listen to speak, always listen to understand first. The next one is synergizing, all right? When working as a team, together everybody achieves more. No matter how successful you become, you can never do it by yourself. And finally, sharpening that sword. If you can't be doing the action, you should be practicing. Well, anyways, that's it for Quick Notes with Chris, but don't let the improvement stop there. Keep looking at other videos that we do have coming up on the website to put yourself in a better position for success. I'll see you guys in the next one.